work done with patterns in water and things like that. And John Stewart Reid has some amazing things to show us and reveal.
That's true.
The other thing I wanted to just touch on, Lee, if we can, is we talked about falling asleep during the channel, but I wanted to make this distinction that when we go into the circle of 12, this is more for the people who are joining us for the first time or are new to the circle of 12. That's where Kryon really wants us to stay awake.
Yeah.
Slightly different, because you're actually participating in the experience. And so wonderful that we now know that there's a third language going on when we sleep during a channeling.
You know, I've always had trouble when you receive in meditation, for instance, when you get really peaceful and you're just ready to listen. I think it's very easy to go into that state of sleep.
Absolutely.
And so that's why Cryon says, "Stay awake, stay awake."
Yes.
But that's what's going on, because suddenly you're overwhelmed with peace and you want to just go, "Oh, yeah."
Complete relaxation, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, not interrupting. Yeah. So there's the third language communication, and then we defined third language. But when we get to the circle of 12, be really present with that process, because you're going to receive so much more out of it when you're participating with it. But right now we are going to do a meditation and the channel, and you have full permission to fall asleep if you choose to do so. But I'd like you to participate with me. I'm inspired by those images of what happened when we said love, and the coherence built and built. And so let's use that, and with the knowledge that our body contains so much water. Most of our body is made of water. You just saw what happens when we say love to the water. So let's use that, and I invite you to close your eyes and feel, sense, visualize those images of beautiful, coherent patterns when the word love is spoken. Let us now address the pieces and parts of our beautiful body with that word love. I love my hands. My hands are so beautiful. I love you, my beautiful hands. I love my feet. My feet that carry me everywhere. They are so magnificent. I love you. I love my feet. I love my knees. My knees give me support. I love my knees. I love my legs. Every piece of my leg is amazing. It's a miracle in itself. I love my legs. I love my stomach. My stomach is amazing. I love it so much. I love the organs of my body. My organs are so miraculous. They continue functioning even when I'm asleep. They are so amazing. I love you. I love every single organ of my body. I love my smile. I love my eyes. I love my ears. I love my nose. I love my eyelashes. There is every single piece of my body that I am in love with. And so, dear innate listening to me, here are your instructions. Send love to every single cell and molecule and DNA particle within my body. Let love flood my system. And in this soup of love, we now welcome in the third language from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. Indeed, everything you learn about your body, we say, create the light. Love yourself. Love every molecule that is yours. It's not an egotistical thing to love the creative source so much that went into the miracle, which is you. The love of self we have talked about many times. And we've talked about it in a way that hopes to straighten out that from those who think that this is egotistical. It is not. You are loving the Creator in you. What do you think would be a fear? One of the greatest fears that so many have, even though they say they don't. If you have spent a lot of time working on this beautiful body of yours, if you've brought it to health, if you had healing, if you're feeling light, if you are pleased with your life and peaceful with all that is, what would be the worst thing that could happen to you that you might fear? And that would be that it all stops. The word is death. Death is our final fear for this month. Now, when you speak to many light workers, they'll tell you this: I'm not afraid of death because I have a greater idea of what happens after I go. And that particular statement is very, very true, and they're very kind with themselves in saying it. And they're being accurate to a certain degree. But I'll tell you this, dear ones, no one of you wants to let go of the creative energy that is in you. Because at some times, all of these things will occur to you. Did I get it right? You know, there is no place where you can pick up a communication device and talk to those who have passed. Instead, you will have the intuitives who will help you with a channel that opens, where you can get not voices and not clarity, but intuitive signals, perhaps, to the other side of the veil. And all this comes together so that it doesn't seem to prove anything to anyone. There's no religion on the planet, no organized religion anywhere, who can point to the afterlife and prove it. All of these things in the doctrines that we've talked about, whether you're going to be punished or not punished, where do you go, what do you do? And this is all on purpose, dear ones, so that you cannot reach across and be certain. And that requires you to have faith. But more than that, it requires you to have intuitive thoughts about your own death. One of the greatest things that's going to happen in this shift will be that which is the increase in the science of longevity. And through the next few years, you're going to see ways of staying healthy longer, staying on this planet longer. And you're going to see a marked coordination between short life and fear, worry, and anxiety. And there will then be those set up to help clear those things specifically for you, so that you will not waste a life in so many short years by not understanding that what you think can create your own demise. And what you think can also create tremendous longevity, going way past the charts and graphs of any medical association or doctor, where they will look at you and they'll say, I don't understand why you're living so long, look so good, and why your body doesn't know you're older. That's what's going to happen. But in the meantime, it doesn't thwart that last fear. Did I get it right? When I pass over, what's the first thing that's going to happen? I want to return to the only evidence that truly has ever been seen, and it comes at a funny place. We have spoken of this before. We'll speak of it again because the evidence comes right from the operating table. In hospitals and major institutions where a person seems to have died and their heart has stopped and their body starts to be cold, the pronouncement is almost made when they're either resuscitated or by themselves, they come back to life. And when this person who has gone through that particular state, some call it near-death experience, we call it near-life experience because of what they saw and what they say. Quite often that patient will recover in the recovery room, face off with the surgeon, and in all seriousness and anger say, "Why did you bring me back?" And this has happened over and over and over. And when you say to them, "Why would you say such a thing? You're alive now and you were dead a moment ago," they will say, and I'll paraphrase it this way, they'll say, you didn't see what I see. Imagine taking that last breath and being transmitted and transformed into the most beautiful place you have ever imagined in your life, where everything is beautiful and perfect, and you realize you're with the Creator, you are back into your soul, and you are in the best place you could ever be, home. You start to hear that beautiful song being sung yet again that we have talked about, that is always there. It's always there. And the next moment, you're back in 3D with all the needles stuck into you and all the fluids pouring in and out. And you go into the recovery room. That would make anybody angry. Being ripped back from home. Ripped back from paradise, perhaps. Think about that. And think of the irony that that's one of the only places, truly, that over and over you get proof of something you didn't expect. Is there life after death? It's not that way, dear ones. It's not that you continue a life after you die here. You go home. You go to the natural state after having a trip to this planet that perhaps wasn't all that great to some of you. Perhaps it's been difficult for some of you. And then you go home. What can I tell you about death? I'll say that you are purposely programmed to fear it. But at some level, some of you have to know that it's okay. And the ones that I would speak to are anyone here, anyone listening, who would have this marginal fear or dreadful fear of their last breath. Happy Wednesday, December 28th.
Hey, I just realized it's the last Healing Wednesday for 2022.
That's right.
Amazing. But we will be back in 2023.
Yes, that's the plan.
Absolutely.
That's what we're going to do.
But how amazing. The year has gone so fast.
So fast. Well, every Wednesday, we're here with special guests, questions and answers, discussions, meditations, and, of course, channeling. Now,
many of you are watching this live stream from a link, probably one that you might have saved, copy and pasted from all the other weeks, or you could have just been using the one that was emailed to you. However, do you know you also have access to a membership portal? If you haven't been to that portal for a while, I really encourage you to go and check it out. It's been updated, it's beautiful, it's so functional, and there's so many things in there for you, like special music, special shows, and my favourite section, well, that's the miracle moments, but I'm going to talk about that later.
I am still regularly reading the chat logs of this show after the broadcast, and the reason I'm doing that is because it's fun. I love seeing what you have to say and how kind you are to each other and how you enjoy our special guests. And if you're watching this as a replay and you can't do that, consider joining us in this wonderful chat area on Wednesday nights if you can. I also wanted to tell you that if you wish to join us up to 15 minutes early, our studio gives you a video and sound so you can check out any internet issues you have before the show starts.
Now, hopefully the live stream is working beautifully, and if you're watching the replay, it's working beautifully anyway. But now we're going to do the question and answer part of the program. Questions can be submitted in your portal, or you can go to cryonmasters.com, and the guidelines are really simple. Ask a question others might be interested in, make them short and concise, and just remember that Lee and I are not therapists. We can't give you those personal readings, so don't ask those personal questions because probably we won't choose them. So here is a question that we did choose, and it comes from Johanna in Athens, Greece, but maybe Johanna, your name is Johanna. I'm always a little confused as to whether I say the H or not. But anyway, regardless, the question is this: why do we fall asleep so easily whenever we listen to Cryon's channeling and feel Cryon, we become sleepy? Well, here's a question that I'm actually going to answer instead of asking Lee, because in my role as the Cryon archivist, I really remembered that Cryon answered the question, not Lee. It was a channeling session we did in Belo Horizonte in Brazil in 2013, and we had the people that were there ask questions that Cryon answered. So I remembered that, and I actually transcribed it and wrote it in my own file for my own personal notes. So when I got that question in the portal, I immediately went and retrieved what I had written down from Cryon. I'm going to read that quote for you now. Here's the quote from Cryon. This is a beautiful question, for it starts to describe the energy of the third language. There are those during channeling who will swear that they received nothing. Some even go to sleep, but not really. This third language is an energy that rides over the linear language, and old souls will feel it. One of the things that it does is to push the linear away and creates a change of your countenance. That is to say, it changes how you feel, mostly affecting old souls. There is a big difference between being bored and going to sleep, or having the third language sit upon you. You can feel the difference. When the third language is upon you, it changes whether you think you can move or not. Sometimes you feel that your legs are anchored to the floor, or there's an energy pushing upon your shoulders. Then you will think that you are sleeping, but you are not. This is a perfect position and situation for the third language, which is multidimensional, to speak to you. And you won't remember it, but the information is precious. Such a good question. Never asked before in all the time my partner has been channeling, so that you could hear the answer today. Blessed is the human being who feels they are going to sleep, for you are the one who is receiving personal and private information. And that's the end quote from Cryon, and hopefully now that explains why so many feel sleepy during a Cryon channeling. Next question comes from Sherry, and Sherry is in Edmonton in Canada and is asking, what does Cryon mean by the third language? Is it with me always? Am I hearing the third language everywhere and in everything? I believe I hear the third language more and more. Could you please tell me more about it?
Well, Sherry, for Monica's reading, thank you for that, Monica, of that Cryon channeling just a moment ago. The first part of your question has already been discussed. But Cryon said it was a message that, as I recall, rides over what you're actually hearing and often puts you in an altered state so you then can absorb it. Often people think that they are sleeping during this time, but they're not. But you continued the question. You ask if you're receiving this message everywhere and in everything, and are you hearing it more and more? So let's speak about what Cryon has been teaching about that's happening to old souls during this amazing shift we're going through. I really don't think you would have asked this question, Sherry, unless it was something you were perceiving right now. Because what you are feeling is truly what is happening, but perhaps in a new way. Let's also discuss more about the third language and what is happening that is different perhaps than from 10 years ago. Many of us are starting to perceive messages through intuition, and it's not putting us to sleep anymore, not at all. Instead, it comes to us clearer than ever, and honestly, I think it's a new way of channeling. You can be talking to friends, and at the same time, you receive a loving message about an answer to something that you've been working on regularly yourself. This really is the third language at its best. So the answer is yes to this additional question about the change of the third language. Finally, why is it called the third language? Now, typical for Cryon, this is a metaphor that means something else. Numbers, they mean things. They mean a lot of things. Cryon's talked about it. And the 3, according to Cryon, is a catalytic energy. The third language then becomes messages which are catalysts for change without changing the vessel, you, on the outside that it's coming from. So it means it's inward change for you, messages for your spirituality. This is something I have seen change greatly in the past 30 years that I've been doing this work. Thank you so much for this question.
And so next we have a question from Marjorie. Marjorie is in Ohio in the US. And Marjorie says, after my awakening in 2021 or 2021, I received a beautiful vision. I just realized that my image looks exactly like the one that was shown during the one field experiment on September 21, 2022. And Kryon said the word love 7 times, and a cymoscope created images. The image reminds me of our DNA structure. Is it possible that I received a download of this image at least a year before, and it was in the field?
Well, Marjorie, thanks so much for the question. It perhaps is a complicated one for some, but allows us to do a little show and tell about this amazing experiment we did back in September, maybe clarify a little more what she's asking. Part of the experiment was the use of a cymoscope during Cryon's channeling. Now, a cymoscope is a scientific instrument, and it's the first one that can provide an image of sound and vibration in ways previously hidden from view. What the scientists were looking for is when Cryon used the word love in the channel, did it change the patterns on the cymoscope from what they were previously? In other words, were they all the same, or did they graduate? Well, indeed, they did graduate to different ones, and Cryon used the word 7 times, love, and each time it provided evidence of a change of coherence in the field, and you could see it visually. Here, I'm going to show it to you on the screen, on this cymoscope. The more structure you can see as patterns, the more coherence there is. Now, Marjorie is asking if it's possible that she actually saw these cymoscopes images in advance as downloads, she says, to her during this time. We're going to stop a minute. What's the cymoscope doing? It's looking at patterns of sound and all of these things. Well, that means that they have, we believe in the field, that they're always there, and they just manifest themselves on a scientific instrument when they're supposed to. My answer is that these things are all in the field. They were in the field. So yes, this is very, very possible. This is what we teach. We teach that things are in the field even before they happen, like, for instance, in inventions and all this. So what she is asking is very, very doable. Remember that the field, something that science has wondered about for so long, is now actually being proven to be a viable player in consciousness. It's why science, including Tesla, I love this, reported imaging how things work, then going on to build them. In the case of Tesla, he reported actually seeing the plans before they were ever built. So that's the field, and I believe that's what you saw also in the CymaScope images. It's not spooky stuff. It's now becoming more and more accepted that thoughts and ideas reside in the field. So this now supports the work also of Lynn McTaggart, my hero, and others, who for a long time have been putting together groups of people to see if one or two groups together sending out love and energy can affect situations, and they do. Today we can now actually measure these things. This September 21 experiment can be viewed on my YouTube channel by anyone at any time. It's free. The video is called The One Field Experiment. Now you can get to my YouTube channel very easily, just in order to dodge around those that say they're me and they're not. The easiest way is cryon.com/YouTube.
I love that, Lee. And the CymaScope that you were speaking of, that was being operated by a scientist by the name of John Stuart Reid. So if that's something you're interested in, I know there's also been a lot of work done with patterns in water and things like that. And John Stuart Reid has some amazing things to show us and reveal.
That's true.
The other thing I wanted to just touch on, Lee,